From the heart of the space city to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, everybody. We are once again having to do a difficult segment, a difficult episode of the show. Over the weekend, we had several different acts of violence, which I predicted, by the way. Do you recall me saying this a couple of weeks ago? I don't remember after which incident it was, but I said there will be more of these attacks. There will be more political and religious violence in this country. I predicted it. Not because I am rooting for that, heaven forbid. I would like to have been wrong. But it's a simple fact that we are currently trying to melting pot together a bunch of cultures that just don't mix. And the entire Western world is guilty of this. I don't know where this came from. I don't know why we're doing it. It largely comes from the political left. But the entire Western world is guilty of this. We have tried to bring in Islam into fundamentally Christian-rooted countries. And those two things just aren't compatible. They aren't. I know we all want them to be, or they all, or whoever all wants them to be, but the simple fact is they're not. We have 1,400 years of historical evidence and data that clearly shows that Islam and Christianity are diametrically opposed. Islam and Judaism are diametrically opposed. There's certain religions that can kind of mingle together a little bit, but en masse, Christianity and Islam, or Judaism and Christianity and Islam, don't all mix together very well. They just don't. That's what the evidence shows. Would it be great if we could all just get along and live together? Yeah, sure, maybe, but the reality is we can't. That's just the simple reality. Now, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong on an individual level with anybody of any religion. I think all of you religiously are wrong because Christ is Lord, but I have nothing against you personally. But when you try to come into the United States en masse and enforce your religious dogma, your religious ideologies in a country that's based off of completely opposite religious dogma and ideologies, as every Western nation is, that creates a problem. It obviously does. And what we're seeing, all these different shootings, are evidence of that. And it's evidence that keeps coming again and again and again. And every single time it happens, I say, until we stop this stupid experiment, it's going to happen again. Macro Islam in Western countries is irreversibly and inevitably going to create strife. That's just a simple fact. And part of this is because these people just kind of have different belief systems from us. And part of it is because they want to force those belief systems on us. And again, I cannot stress this enough. This is not an indictment of all Muslim people, because I've met Muslim people that are great people. I have. I've gotten along with them. I've had good times talking with them. However, there is a significant portion of the Muslim community that has a sort of religious supremacy that they want to force down on everybody else. And this isn't just me saying this. This isn't just me being Islamophobic or a conspiracy theorist. They openly say this. It's not hard to go on the internet and find videos of primarily Muslim men saying things like, oh no, we are the best, we are the greatest, we are going to force Islam into your home. The answer there is no. It will always be no. This is a Christian country built on Christian values for Christian people. You can come here, but you have to operate like us. You don't get to force your beliefs and Sharia law or whatever else you have down on the Western world. We're not built for that. If you want to do that, there's countries where you can do that. And many of them are successful. There are Arab countries where you can go and have a great time and be under Sharia law. They're not the United States. We aren't doing that here. Nevertheless, they want to force that on you. This attack in Australia is an example of that. This appears to be a ISIS attack. These people, from what I'm reading from the Australian authorities, it looks like the two perpetrators of this shooting in Australia were motivated by their connections to ISIS. And even CNN is saying that. The suspects in the deadly shooting at Australia's Bondi Beach were a father and son, identified as 50-year-old Shadid Akram and his 24-year-old son, Naveed Akram. The shooting appeared to have been inspired by extremist Islamic State ideology, said Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. And they targeted what I believe was a Jewish Hanukkah celebration. I guarantee you, these guys are not the only guys in Australia that think like this, that think that their violence is justified by their religion, that are willing to go and attack people of another faith in order to force their religion on to other people in those Western countries. I mean, we've seen this here in the United States. We've seen ISIS-motivated shootings here. The shooting at the gay nightclub in Florida several years ago. I don't remember exactly the year, but it was somewhere around 2017-ish, I think. That was an ISIS-motivated attack against a group of people that they believed they were religiously justified in killing. And I guarantee you, after all these years we've had of just mass, unvetted, unfiltered immigration, there's more of those people here in the United States. This cannot be allowed. And the simple fact is, the only metric we have by which to filter it out is the religion of Islam. There comes a point where we have to say, maybe we need to put a pause on accepting people of this particular faith from this particular region into this country. And that's not Islamophobic. It's not racist. You're allowed to say that. It's a simple matter of practicality. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. We have got to start looking at this realistically. We'll be right back after this quick break. We've got some more examples of this. I wanna show you this video, but I don't have time for it in this segment. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. All right, unfortunately, we have multiple shootings that we need to talk about in this episode. Before I get to the second one, I want to give you some evidence of some of the claims that I made in the first segment. I told you we simply cannot coexist with mass Muslim immigration. And it's not because we don't want to, right? I think it's there. The moment you say anything about, hey, the oil and water here aren't mixing, you immediately get labeled a racist. It's immediately, oh, you hate Muslim people, you're Islamophobic. Like, no, I'm just practical. I look at the real world, and what I see is constantly, we cannot get a mass immigration of Muslims into a Western nation and that work out. There's no example of that happening. And it's not for lack of trying. People in the West have been trying for 50 years. At the end of the day, it comes down to there are enough Muslims in any group of Muslims that don't want to coexist. And I'll give you proof of that. Here is, I don't know who this guy is. He's some Muslim talking head with the Men of Ummah. I'm not entirely familiar with what this group is, but if you look at their homepage, we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to cultivating an Islamic environment for young men in the Chicagoland area. Note that it doesn't say cultivating a multicultural land where Islam is accepted along with every other religion. It says Islamic environment. That means something specific. That means Muslim rule, Muslim rulers, Sharia law. This isn't hypotheticals and vagaries. This is very specific. Islamic environment. We need to start taking that seriously, and we need to start taking what these guys are saying seriously. So what are they saying? Well, here's this clip of this guy saying, we did not come here to coexist. We did not come here to coexist. His words. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, these days we don't repeat this enough, or we don't have this aqidah concept firm in our minds that Islam did not come to coexist. Islam لا يعلى. الإسلام يعلو ولا يعلى عليه.
What he said was Islam is always superior and should not be surpassed. If you're listening and can't see the subtitles.
And Islam is raised high and nothing is raised above Islam. We can't think of Islam that it came to live with these other religions in the sense that Islam is a religion amongst those religions and they have a share with the truth. And they have a share of justice. And they have a share of, this worship of Allah, the correct worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Islam came to correct all of that. Islam came to remove the oppression of all those religions, and it is the only truth.
Islam came to remove the oppression of all those religions. There's only a handful of ways to interpret that. And none of them are, oh, this guy's going to let me go to my church and not force me at gunpoint into his mosque. I mean, again, they're saying it out loud. At some point, we have got to acknowledge the fact that as much as you may like your individual Muslim neighbors, if we bring in massive amounts of Muslims from Muslim countries that are used to living under Muslim law and like living under Muslim law and want to force you to live under Muslim law, if you don't accept that, there's going to be a problem. Until we acknowledge that simple reality, these attacks are going to keep happening. And unfortunately, I'm afraid we have another example here in the United States. I'm not positive that this is an example of radical Islamic violence, but the fact that we're hearing so little from Brown University about the shooting that occurred there tells me that there's a good chance that it is. Brown University is known for being a very left-wing institution, so it's very believable that if this was, in fact, an example of kind of either far left or radical Islamic violence, they would try to cover it up. They would try to hide it. That's believable to me. I believe that. So, unfortunately, what we know right now about this Brown University shooting that happened days ago, we're like 5 or 6 days in, and we still don't even have a positive ID on this guy. I mean, just last night, a lot of the kind of internet sleuths on X, I think have sorted out who they think it is, but we still have no official word on even a suspect. I mean, this feels like Charlie Kirk 2.0. We're days out from this, and we still don't even know who did it. So here's what we do know, and this is via the BBC. So I can't give you anything more straightforward than BBC to all you leftists on TikTok who constantly fuss about how I'm using right-wing sources. Here's BB freaking C for you. The gunman opened fire in a classroom at around 1600 local time on Saturday at the Hawley Engineering Building at the eastern end of Brown's campus, according to officials. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley said one of those injured in the incident was in critical condition, while 7 others remained stable, and another had been discharged from the hospital. In an ex post, the College Republicans of America released a statement identifying Ella Cook as one of the deceased. There were 2 deceased students. One of them was Ella Cook. It's starting to look like this was a targeting of her. So, who was she? Please join us in remembering Ella Cook, vice president of the College Republicans at Brown University. She was a Christian who was the leader of the only conservative group at the very liberal college, Our heartfelt prayers to her family and friends. Again, only conservative group, and she was one of the key leaders, the vice president. I've been in a number of conservative groups. I've been in a number of, various organizations that have titles and roles like vice president. So I can tell you from complete confidence that this is someone who played a key role in that group. She would have been well known. So it is entirely believable that she was the target of this attack. And there's a lot of evidence that's coming out to indicate that that's the case. We haven't had that confirmed because, again, the university appears to be releasing as little information as possible. The police appear to be releasing as little information as possible. Even the FBI has done, for my money, a terrible job of transparency. I mean, I'd like to think that they know more than they're letting on, but if that's the case, you should be filling us in a lot more than you are. But again, this is the victim, Ella Cook, one of two that has been confirmed dead, and we'll talk about the second one in a minute here, just because I haven't pulled up all the information on him just yet. So we'll do that after the break, and acknowledge him as he deserves. He's a murder victim. But it seems to me that she was the target of this attack, and she was a Christian leading a conservative group. If she was the target of the attack, as the evidence seems to be pointing, you have to wonder why. It doesn't seem like this is a classic case of, oh, she rubbed the wrong person the wrong way and they went out and murdered her. Everything I've seen so far, from the little evidence that we can dig up just super sleuths on Twitter, it seems to me that she was targeted for her beliefs by a radical leftist, if not also a radical Muslim. Again, how many times does this have to happen before we just start acknowledging some of these simple realities? One, more people need to carry guns. That's a simple reality. You need to be able to defend yourself because this guy is still alive, scampering about. He is still a threat, whoever this shooter is. That wouldn't have happened if there were enough armed people that engaged this shooter at the time of the shooting. As we saw in Australia, at least some armed people, after unfortunately dozens were killed, some armed police officers eventually showed up and engaged the shooters and took them out of the picture. But that didn't happen at Brown. Why? It's because the law-abiding people were disarmed. Again, we're going to keep going on this. We'll be right back in just a minute. All right, I do want to take a moment before we get back to kind of what we were talking about to acknowledge one of the other shootings shooting victims at Brown University. I've seen a lot of people upset that he's not getting the acknowledgement that they feel he deserves, and he is deserving of some acknowledgement. He is a murder victim. He is a tragic case of what is appearing more and more to be radical Islamic violence. He deserves to be acknowledged, so that is what we are going to do here. Kind-hearted Midlothian High School grad was killed in Brown University shooting, family friend says. This is now confirmed, by the way. This is not just a report. Muhammad Aziz Umerzakov, who graduated in May from Midlothian High, is remembered as incredibly kind, funny, and smart. His sister stated, or said, geez, I can't read. Here he is in a couple of graduation pictures. He looks like a nice enough guy. This is a tragedy. It is. Here's his high school graduation photos. Here's the statement from the Uzbekistani embassy. This guy was, I believe, a Uzbekistan national here legally, is my understanding. I'm deeply saddened by reports of the tragic death of Brown University student Muhammad Aziz Umerzakov. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but I'm sorry. On December 13th, we extend our sincere condolences to Mr. Umar Zakov's family, friends, and fellow students and mourn the loss of his bright future. That's the statement from Ambassador Jonathan Hennick. So there it is. I mean, both of these deaths are a tragedy in equal parts. All life is value. All people are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. He was denied those rights. So he deserves acknowledgement and he deserves justice. This person who carried out this shooting, for the sake of both him and Ella, the other victim, needs to be caught and needs to be brought to swift and severe justice. I am going to focus more on Ella only because the evidence I'm seeing appears to show that she was the target. Not just another victim, but the target. That's why I think she's getting so much attention. Liberals are already complaining. Why is she getting all the attention in this shooting? Because it looks like she was the target, not just another victim. So here she is again. She's the president or vice president of the college Republicans at Brown University, Ella Cook. Here is Jesse Waters on Fox kind of detailing why it's believed that she's not just another victim, but was actually the target. It appears from the reports that Jesse Waters is saying that she was not just shot, but shot multiple times. He didn't just come in and start spraying and praying. He targeted her, shot her multiple times, and it looks like caught a few other people, which is very believable. Here's Jesse Waters saying all that.
Directly in the eye, and then the shooter didn't kill him. Why didn't the shooter shoot the guy? If this is a random attack, he's just spraying bullets around, why didn't he shoot the guy he came eye to eye with? That's weird. We're also hearing interesting reports that the vice president of the Brown Republicans might have been shot multiple times. We still don't understand if this was a targeted shooting, and they're not giving us any clue about that. We also need to know, do you need to swipe a card before you get into this building? We're hearing you have to swipe cards. So was this guy a student? Did he have access to the building? Is he an international student? How many international students do they have at Brown University? It's been a very thorny issue, the issue of the Palestinian situation. There's been a lot of action, a lot of protests at Brown University. Does that concern them? Is there an international angle that they're concerned about? Still don't know about that. How about the one reporter who asks, well, we talked to a bunch of the residents and businesses that are a block away, and they say the cops never came to ask them for the Ring camera videos until this morning. So 4 days later, we're still not really flooding the zone. We're not flooding it with police. We're not flooding it with information. And the president of the university, I mean, everybody's talking about these websites being taken down.
Right.
And she has no idea. Right afterwards, in the aftermath, immediately, she had no idea what the class was. Right. How is she, the leader of the school, so unaware about the basics of this case? It's just frustrating.
It's almost as
directly.
And he's exactly right. This is frustrating. How do we still know so little? Like he pointed out, it took days for them to even ask neighbors in the surrounding area for their ring footage, for their video camera footage, anything they may have captured. And you saw in the top corner, if you were watching, they were playing some videos of the person of interest they now have, still haven't identified, still can't tell us anything about this guy. But here's a couple of clips of him that we caught on some neighbors' ring footage that we didn't get until presumably yesterday, 4 days later. I mean, this is gross incompetence at best from both the university, the local police, and the federal authorities. That's right. I'll call balls and strikes on even my own people. If it is the Republicans who are leading the federal administration, what is the FBI doing right now? What are they doing? Why hasn't the FBI given us more information? Why is the FBI going out and saying, we'll offer you $50,000 for information leading to this arrest? You guys haven't given us anything. We know nothing. We don't know the name of this guy. You haven't given us a name for the suspect. All we've got is, here's some footage of the guy we think might have did it walking down the street with his face covered in a hoodie, So you can barely see anything about this guy other than roughly his size and shape. How is that the best that we can do 4 days now, 5 days later? We got to do better. We've got to set the bar higher. I don't know what else I can say about that. And again, you heard Jesse Waters mention it. It would appear that this guy did go in and target her directly. He knew what class she was in. He came in, he killed her, shot her multiple times, according to that report. I mean, locked eyes with other people, other folks that he could have shot and didn't, and then left, just walked away. And we don't have any footage of this guy. How do we not have footage of this guy? I mean, this is a prestigious, very wealthy college. How do they not have security cameras everywhere? There should be a security camera in every classroom, in every public space. They offered some ridiculous excuse to this. Here's some school official, or I don't know if this is a Providence, Rhode Island official, saying the reason we don't have any footage of this guy is because this happened in an older part of the school. Really? That's your excuse? Take a listen.
It doesn't come as a surprise to me, at least, that there are cameras in the newer part of the building. And there's video footage, okay? So there's the back part of the building, old part, and front part, new part. The shooting occurs in the old part, towards the back, up towards Hope Street. In that older part of the building, there are fewer, if any, cameras in that location. I imagine because it's an older building. So as students are fleeing the area of the shooting into the new part of the building, there are cameras in that brand new building that show that chaos. But the only video of the presumed, anticipated, suspected, however you want to define it, person of interest, you have it. We would release it if we thought it would be helpful in identifying this subject, because we are relying on the press and public to help get us there. There would be no reason for us to hold it back. We're looking for the best image we can.
So that's their excuse. It's an older part of the building. But he kind of says the quiet part out loud right there. All the surrounding newer parts of the campus, newer parts of the building, what about the security cameras there? You should at least have video of this guy walking up to the older part of the building. I don't know, I'd look for the guy with the gun. See if you can find that guy on any footage. I simply don't believe that they just don't have any footage from the university of this guy. That just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we've got some old schools here in Texas, some old universities here in Texas. My wife went to Mary Hardin Baylor. That's one of the oldest schools in the state. It was founded in 1845. At one point, she lived in one of the oldest buildings on that campus. It was built at the turn of the 19th century. And there was still security cameras in that building. There was still security cameras in the hallway, in the common areas, all over the place. It doesn't make sense to me even a little bit. And I simply don't believe it. I simply don't believe it. I mean, we got to do better. It's been days. We need to know more. And again, I said earlier, the internet sleuths on X have a suspect. The internet sleuths are doing more than the FBI. I won't say his name and I won't show his picture because, again, he's not a confirmed suspect or person of interest, so I don't want to put his name out there. But the fact that Twitter is doing more to catch this guy than the FBI, from what I can see, is shocking. All right, I want to real quick kind of tack a little bit and mention something that I think is very important. This came out late last night. It looks like things in Venezuela are starting to heat up a little bit. Trump has obviously been going hard against a lot of the cartels. There's a strong argument to be made that the administration and the leadership in Venezuela is illegitimate. I don't know. I don't follow Venezuelan politics closely. I'm an American. I've got my own fish to fry here, but there is, I think, a very strong case to be made that the Venezuelan regime is illegitimate. Now, does that mean we need to go in and solve their problems for them? No. Frankly, I don't care. If the Venezuelan regime is legitimate or illegitimate, it makes no difference to me. Now, that being said, if the illegitimate Venezuelan regime is actively fostering things like cartels, which are intentionally harming American citizens for profit, that is, I think, worth some very selective, careful, scalpel, not hammer intervention. So here's what we've got going on right now. Here is the Truth Social from President Trump. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger. And the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before. Until such time as they return to the United States of America, all of the oil, land, and other assets that they have previously stole from us. Now, I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about. I don't know if he's talking about literal assets that have been taken from the United States by, I guess, cartels, or if he's using that more figuratively. If there's something that we should have had rights to that they're controlling, I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about. If they are actively stealing from us, if there are things that we're entitled to that they're not letting us have, or they're trying to take illegitimate possession of, we should intervene there. Stuff that is ours is ours. We have the biggest military in the world, so that everybody knows that. I have no problem with the U.S. military intervening in situations like that. The illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from these stolen oil fields to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. That's bad, for sure. For the theft of our assets and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, the Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, today I am ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela. Now, I am not an interventionist on the global stage. Venezuela is in our vicinity. They're not that far away. They're pretty close. This is South America. This is our hemisphere. So I would maybe look at this a little bit differently than how I look at things like the Middle East, right? If there is a, what's the word I'm looking for here? If we can significantly reduce the active risk to American citizens by doing something as simple as blockading Venezuela, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. If you can clearly explain to me why we need to blockade Venezuela, I'm not opposed to that. If they're actively shipping in drugs to the United States of America, things like fentanyl, that are going to harm and kill us, I like the idea of us blockading them in order to stop that. If they are stealing things that rightly belong to the United States of America, or even American companies and American citizens, I like the idea of blockading them to stop them from stealing from us, or to stop them from profiting off of stealing from us. Even if we need to do targeted operations on the ground in Venezuela in order to neutralize certain cartel leaders or, other various threats, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. Here's what I am opposed to, and I'm just going to get out ahead, and I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying it now so that I can be consistent in what I'm saying on this platform. I will always oppose things like a regime change. I am not opposed to beating a regime into submission, but if we're going and dedicating, let's get hypothetical. Let's say this blockade turns into a 4-year on-the-ground war in Venezuela to install some other dictator that just happens to be more closely aligned to the United States. I'm opposed to that. Now, at the same time, if we're sending in SEAL Team 6 to kill this cartel leader, or sending in whoever to kill whoever, or just blockading Venezuela, I don't necessarily oppose that. Because here's the simple reality. Our military resources are going to be used. That's unavoidable. We can sit and say they shouldn't be all day and night. At the end of the day, the simple fact is they will be used, whether you agree with it or not. So, what is the minimum amount of risk to our troops and our assets for the maximum amount of reward? That's where my support is. Because the simple fact is world peace doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not attainable. And if we're spending all this money on military assets and then they just sit there and don't do anything ever, there's a strong chance or strong case to be made that we have a chance to use them as a deterrent. And that's good. But when that chance arises, we need to take it. So, all of that to say, if this is just a blockade of Venezuela in order to stop tankers full of stolen oil or drugs or anything like that, I support it. But if this turns into a long, hot war in order to install a regime that's more friendly to us, I don't like that. We shouldn't do that. Now, at this point in time, I'm willing to give the president the benefit of the doubt on this. I am. And I said this during the Iraq bombings of their nuclear facilities as well. I said this at that time. If this is just a bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities and then we call it a day, I'm fine with that. If this turns into us deploying troops for 20 years into Iraq, I don't like that. Or Iran, not Iraq. And what happened with that? We gave President Trump the benefit of the doubt. We struck those nuclear sites in Iran, and that was the end of it. That was the whole story. We struck them. They threw some missiles at, I think, Qatar and didn't hit anything. And then that was it. That was the end. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. If we have specific goals, specific targets, and we hit those and call it a day, that's fine with me. I know a lot of people on the conservative right want to say that we should never use the military for anything until Congress goes and makes a formal declaration of war. That's kind of the Rand Paul position. And I think in a perfect world, that would be great. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world with real threats, real security issues. And if those real security issues are in Venezuela and we can act and we can do something here or there to address it, then I support that. Again, we don't know how this will turn out. We have to wait and see what happens. But again, I think the cartel issue, the drug issue, and we know that's happening in Venezuela, that enough, I think, warrants some action. I mean, how many thousands of Americans die preventably every year from things like fentanyl poisoning, fentanyl overdosing? A lot of that is coming in from Venezuela. These are cartels that are based in Venezuela that are smuggling these things into the United States. So yeah, blockade them. And if the Maduro regime in Venezuela is actively propping these cartels up, which it seems like they have been doing, then direct action against Venezuela, I think, is warranted. If the government of Venezuela is actively, knowingly harming American citizens by way of the cartels that they support, then yeah, let's take some action here. That, I feel like, is pretty consistent. Let's deal with direct threats as they arise. That's my foreign policy position. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. We will be back Sunday evening, 7 p.m. on AM 950 KPRC with more of the Next Gen Report. Thank you very much for listening.